let's get right into it with this video, and then we share some more thoughts as we go. Thank you, Justin.
We're also watching, and I want to play out for you this meeting that Attorney General Pam Bondi has convened of the cabinet as they're talking about this new task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. Let's listen into this meeting taking place in our nation's capital.
We're excited to be here for the launch of the task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias as outlined in the President's executive order. Joining me today are members of the task force and individuals who have been impacted by the anti-Christian bias. Together, this task force will identify any unlawful anti-Christian policies, practices, or conduct across the government, seek input from the faith-based organizations and state governments to end anti-Christian bias, find and fix deficiencies in existing and regulatory practices that might contribute to the anti-Christian bias. As President Trump has stated, the Biden administration engaged in an egregious pattern of targeting peaceful Christians while ignoring violent anti-Christian offenses. The president is right. Biden's Department of Justice abused and targeted Christians. Pro-life Christians were arrested and imprisoned for peacefully praying outside abortion clinics. The FBI spied on traditional Catholics in their parishes. President Biden declared Easter Sunday to be Transgender Day of Visibility. No longer. Vandalism against churches was 8 times higher in 2023 than it was in 2018. And as at President Trump's directive, we ended those abuses at the Department of Justice on day one. We dropped 3 ongoing cases against pro-lifers and redefined the FACE Act to ensure that abuse would not continue and that American tax dollars were not used to support the weaponization of our legal system to target Christians. Just a few weeks ago, we convicted a man in Arizona for a plot to bomb Christian churches. The Department of Justice will protect religious liberty for Christians and for all Americans. We'll work closely with everyone around this table and take a whole of government approach to solving this problem and ultimately protect Americans' First Amendment rights. The First Amendment isn't just a line in the Constitution, it's the cornerstone of our American liberty. It guarantees every citizen the right to speak freely, worship freely, and live according to their conscience without government interference. Protecting Christians from bias is not favoritism, it's upholding the rule of law and fulfilling the constitutional promise. Thank you to President Trump. We have an incredible opportunity, all of us around this table, to protect the rights of all citizens from discrimination based on their religious beliefs. And thank you all for being here based on this executive order, and I look forward to doing great work together. Now, Deputy Attorney General.
All right, so we can pause right here and get some perspective on this. And the question could be asked, what is so wrong with anti-Christian bias, man? The government is looking for ways to give power to the church and to protect the church from biases that are more government in nature. Just making the Christian feel safe. What is so wrong with that? Let's talk. You can unmute yourself. Sorry, I had to unmute because we had some noise in the background. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I want to jump in here and so this is the irony that when you say anti-Christian bias, you have to ask the question, which brand of Christianity? And is it apostate Protestant Christianity or is it Catholic Christianity? And so I think that what we know in terms of reactivity of governments, what you get is the pendulum swings from one side to the next, and so you go into another extreme. I would be happy if this was a moderation to say, hey, what we're trying to do is return things to the center, and to really center on freedom of conscience and freedom, really not really just for, it's not just for Christians, but to return freedom to, let's say, the marketplace of ideas. But I don't think that that's what we're talking about. And I think, unfortunately, that I think, to the earlier question, one of the things, some great controversy that comes to mind is that the Beast of Revelation 13 will repudiate every principle of its Republican and Republican constitution. And so I think what's concerning is that within the executive branch, there is a power grab going on that is creating an unbalance between its three branches. And if you concentrate power within the executive branch, then that begins, I think, really I think, I'm not a legal scholar, but for me, functionally, it's creating a constitutional crisis. And I think that that's going to be there will be some consequences later on, particularly for Sabbath observing, Sabbath keeping Adventist.
Thank you, Brother Ulrich. I thought you articulated very well what I was thinking as well. Go ahead, Brian. I saw you. Go ahead.
No. I was going to chime in on that. Now, if the Constitution is already in place to protect us in religious beliefs, then why implement laws that it seems there's a different motive behind that. She clearly states that the Constitution is in place for that purpose, but then says that executive orders need to be put in place in order to protect. So there's something that's inconsistent there. And one of the things that I was thinking, just from the perspective of affecting us as Seventh-day Adventists and Christians that have been tasked with giving the three angels messages, the third angel's message, which it seems to be directed at that specifically, is an attack on freedom of speech. Because what encompasses that message is we have to tell the truth about the image, which is the union of church and state. So if, like my brother said, if this is coming from the perspective that it's what type of Christianity is it protecting, then we see this law may be in place to impede that message so that when we have to speak up and tell the truth about the image, the beast, and the legislative mark, it will be considered illegal and a crime and hate speech. So that's where it seems like it's stemming.
Yes.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head for me right here. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. Just to add to what the others are saying, I think of Daniel 6 on the account where, as brother had said earlier, the Constitution is there in place for that reason. But here's the thing that really stuck out to me that could turn against when you make things in law. It says in verse 5 in Daniel 6. If you want, you can pull it up if you want.
Okay, I can do that for you.
Daniel 6 verses 5 and 6. So it says, then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said thus unto him, King Darius live forever. And when they consulted together, it continues on. We go further. I guess for the sake of time, won't get into it too much. But if you notice, they found no fault. So in the article that in the video that we just saw, they were just peacefully protesting, or by praying rather, right? Mm-hmm. They weren't doing anything violent or vandalizing. But what's interesting is Daniel had no fault found in him, but yet they made a law to entrap him, right? So in this angle, there's a danger, because we're not judging the hearts of these lawmakers. They don't know, some of them don't understand they don't realize what they're doing. They're doing it for the sake of protecting, those who are innocent and doing things peacefully, right? And those who are Christians. But we see throughout Scripture, when they put things into law in favor of or against, rather, whether for or against, it could turn against you, right? Or for. But in this sense, we see Daniel had no fault, but they made a law to try to trap him.
Correct.
Right. And so, as the other brother had said, is it for apostate Protestants, or what Christian group are we protecting here? Right. So that's another thing too.
That is Daniel 6, if I may continue to add to what you've said, this is so good. So earlier there were laws passed to condemn Daniel, and it was a setup. Darius had to go with the law because you could not change the law of the Medes. So But what I also notice in Daniel when you go down, the king, the very thing that he did at first that went against Daniel, he's now doing against everybody else. But he thinks he's doing a good thing. Look in verse 24, even after Daniel came out of the lion's den and was saved from the lion's mouth and so on, we are told the king commended that these men be brought that had accused Daniel. So he dealt with those men. And what's the next thing he did? He made a decree. Like, brother, it was the decree that brought Daniel into the lion's den. Now, another decree you made at the end in the name of protecting Daniel is only going to violate the liberty of conscience of other individuals, other Daniels who may not even be thinking about. So the point of the matter is, he's making a decree in every dominion of my kingdom, men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, that he is the living God and steadfast forever. Now, oftentimes we read this and say, oh, that's a good thing. Well, not really, because he's still a political leader trying to implement a particular religion in his kingdom. It is still a theocracy that is being established here, even though, yes, he's under conviction. He believes the God of Daniel, but to make a decree for everybody to go along with that specific religion is a problem. And I think it goes back to what you guys were saying, like, which religion are we talking about here? Ultimately, what this is going to do, and I think is going to fulfill exactly what Ellen White says. I forgot I think his Last Day Events or Evangelism 195, where she says, under one head, which is Roman Catholicism, all the world will unite. So ultimately, this is going to protect the Catholic faith more than anything. It's not going to protect the Christian world. So anyway, go ahead. Anybody else?
Now,
Yeah.
she mentioned seek input from faith-based organizations.
Correct.
Now, this is a Christian task force, and they're going to seek input from faith-based organizations. Now, this is interesting because what we're seeing here then, it's not like a atheist or a secular person is carrying this out. These are other Christians that are going to seek input from other faith-based organizations. So in doing this, the churches seem like they're going to play an instrumental role as well in giving feedback to this Christian task force that's been implemented into the White House and politics. And there's going to be a cooperation between then the churches and the government, right? And it's going to oppress all dissenting voices that are in conflict with their agenda in the direction in which they believe they're taking this country and the church. So it's going to be very ugly pretty soon as these things develop.
Yeah, yeah. You know, have you guys? This is the lady I was talking about. She has some. She's a Catholic, so we do not agree on many things doctrinally speaking. But she took a strong stance against these type of movements, and I want to play a soundbite from that, and I don't want to spend too much time on here.
And so when I saw that Project 2025 had revised in 2021 to include the to include making contraception and birth control unlawful, I thought, oh my gosh, there it is. That's the Catholic stamp. And then, of course, I learned that Kevin Roberts is an Opus Dei Catholic. He's the new president of the Heritage Foundation. And I'm not discounting that the Protestants are away or the evangelicals are way on in this too. Not at all. But what I can talk about are the finer points of the Catholic involvement. And look, you know, with 6 of 9 Supreme Court justices, 5 of which are fascist far-right Catholics, 1 of which is raised Catholic, still fascist to the core, and with Leonard Leo, who is an Opus Dei Catholic, you know, stacking the Supreme Court, having so much influence on state courts and attorneys general, solicitors general on the state level. You know, if you want the Catholics, they really did pull an 11th hour gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, that's par for the course. She exposes it in so many ways. This is like a 2 hours and something videos, and you and I will pick up on some things that you'll say, not right. But you can pick up and discern the good and the bad from this. But ultimately, the golden theme of some of her messages has been, no, church and state should not unite. I don't care if they're Catholics. I don't care if they're Protestants. I don't care why they feel they need to do so. She is totally against that. It's actually very amazing listening to her, some of her remarks as well. Anyway, that's kind of my perspective when it comes to this. It seems like these movements are bringing us closer to more prophetic events.